Okay.
Welcome to the Coos Bay School District Board of Directors Regular School Board Meeting with Executive Session. I'm Vice Chair Kevin Rubenzart. I'm filling for our Board Chair Tim Briggs. Welcome fellow board members, stakeholders, and community. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, give me just a second to share the screen here. One sec. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a-
I move that we accept the agenda with a change that we move the executive session until the end of our meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ernie.
I also have a suggestion. So all of us have been tasked with doing some work in our last executive session. So I would also move that we add an executive session to consider. David gave me a cheat sheet here. Amend the adjourn for a seeking executive pursuant to ORS 192-660 subsection 2A, consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. This is related to what Kevin and I were directed right now.
Oh, I take that as a friendly amendment. Do you take that as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so can we second that?
Don't need to, I think, now that it's question seconded.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, item 6 for the, do I hear a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Items for information. First up, we have Mallory Adams.
So even though it's been a shorter month is normal, winter sports have officially started, and wrestling went to Cascade 2 weeks ago, and Sutherland, where the boys won first and the girls won third. They also went to Gold Coast Classic, which is a big wrestling tournament, and Arian Wright got 4th place, and Rowan Hampton, Maudie, and Trey Forbes all achieved 6th place in their weight class. Boys and girls basketball had their first home games, which they won and performed greatly. And swim meet had a meet in Cottage Grove and hosted meet this weekend and have been doing well. Our clubs have been doing really well as well, and Mr. Seaborg's new chess club is off to a great start. Our drama club had their last performance of Wind in the Willows this last weekend and did a great job with that performance. Journalism, yearbook, and radio broadcasting had a trip to U of O, which, according to the students I spoke to, it was a great experience. And our speech and debate team had a tournament, and Adir and Becky DeSpian were finalists. We are starting an agriculture club, though we don't have an advisor yet, and there's a new film club with Mr. Green. We've had some pretty big school activities and events recently. Our ASB and Marshfield Charity Program provided 24 meals for Thanksgiving and will provide meals and gifts to families for Christmas. Our Pirate Underground has 21 students attending, and we had a fine arts assembly on the 3rd this month, where choir, drama, and band were spectacular and did great performances. Our band concert is on the 13th, and our choir concert is on the 19th. And we had an interesting assembly last Friday, because we had a rock, paper, scissors challenge to find out who was the champion of rock, paper, scissors in the high school. And it turned out to be a freshman named Jonathan, I do not remember his last name, and he did an amazing job. And he won, which was interesting because he beat Chance Browning, the senior, which he was booed because, everyone wants a senior to win. And Mr. Ashton, of course, last but not least, finally made his basket in the announcements because he's got a basket hook behind his desk, and he made it without looking. And I kid you not, because everyone watches them at the same time, you could hear the screams of all across the school because he finally made it, finally. And it was talked about the rest of the day. Everyone thought it was great. So I thought I had to add that because it's the most important thing, obviously. Finally made that basket.
Took you a lot of practice.
That is all I have.
All right, thank you, Mallory. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mallory? All right, up next, we have the facility needs assessment summary from Joe.
Hi folks, good evening. Good to see you all in a while. I was asked to put together kind of a short, brief little summary of some work we've been doing for the district regarding a facilities assessment. And I'll give go ahead and start the slideshow.
Trying to share it, but it's not happening. That's okay.
The work that we've been doing is related to long-range facility planning as well as your facility assessment work. And we started on the project last summer, and we've had a couple presentations. Some of you board members have listened to this already, so I'm not going to try to give any kind of detail. I know you got a full agenda, so I've got about 6 or 7 slides, and we'll kind of just go through it. If you have any questions, just let me know. Next slide. So what we've been doing is, like I said, we've been going through your facilities a couple weeks from our office. By the way, I'm Joe Slack with HG Architects, and our firm here is in Coos Bay. So with our office, and then we had a structural engineer, a mechanical engineer, plumbing engineer, and electrical engineer. We poured through your buildings. Brian from facilities helped escort us through. And we put together this draft report. We sent it out. I mean, this is 300 pages. I'm not going to try to get into the nitty gritty on it, but it's full of, it's got some photo reports. We have cost estimates. We have floor plans of all the buildings that kind of help us calculate costs and narratives. And it's in draft form right now. And so we're planning on wrapping it up first of the year. We're taking comments. We're doing our own QA. Costs continue to be a struggle to keep track of. So right now, the total of all your facilities is about 85 million in terms of addressing needs assessment work. And I'll get into that in a minute, but you have a lot of facilities. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're doing this in collaboration with Brick Architecture. They're an architectural firm out of Portland, and they specialize in educational work. They have an educational planner by the name of Elise Warner, who has been working with the district. And so we have a long-term relationship. I've worked with those individuals for 10, 15 years. So they've started the long-range planning, and some of you may have sat through that first initial meeting. Next slide. So highlights, it's amazing. You guys have 775,000 square feet of building. That's a lot of facility for the district to be responsible for. You do a great job, but obviously some facilities are older than others, and so it remains to be a challenge. Not only you have 21 buildings, but you also have covered play structures, you have campus improvements, you have field space, track and field facilities. So with the high school where we're sitting, about half of your buildings are on this campus. There's about 11 buildings here. That includes over the hill with the stadiums and the the junior high facility. So we have the main classroom building, it's got a 1939 vintage age of it, and it's about 130,000 square feet. Has a lot of systems that have been identified, not just on this with our work here, but the last needs assessment that was done about 8 years ago. So some of those facilities or some of those systems haven't been addressed. And then we have Pirate Hall, East Gym, West Gym, Drama Lab, Construction CTE building, Arc House, Radio Lab, North Stadium, South Stadium. So a lot of buildings right here in this little campus area. And then with the last bond measure, I call them new, well, they are new, East Side School, Marshfield Junior High, and then Madison, new for the most part, major renovation, total system replacement, all the ADA, vertical circulation, as well as an addition. So those are considered new. Next slide. And then the other buildings, Milner Crest or District Office, East Side, Madison, Milcoma, Sunset, Marshfield, Bunker Hill, which is where Lighthouse is, their charter school, and then Blossom Gulch, which has been kind of an interim building that you've been able to utilize. Then the maintenance building and transportation building out in Empire, those facilities reside out there. So the building's age is 1938 through 2022. You do an average, they average about 44 years old. So you can see why a lot of those facilities and finishes are sort of come due, if you will. It was with the last efforts you all have made, it brought it down. They were 55 years old. Now they're 44. So we gained a little bit. So that's a good thing. Next slide. So what we looked at are pretty global. We're not getting any kind of detail, but we're looking at Americans with disabilities, access issues, and civil requirements been around for a long, long time. So whether it's getting out of the car and getting to the building, or once you're in the building, what facilities are you able to get moving around the building? We call those barriers. So our needs assessment identifies barriers to ADA compliance. And then the building envelope, walls, doorways, windows, roofing's a big one, with that many square feet. Those roofing numbers add up to big numbers, and then finishes as well. And then structural is mostly kind of the vintage of the building. If we know the age of the building, which we do, we know for a fact that the buildings were designed to meet current sizing issues or requirements. And then mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We also review sites and playgrounds and fields. So next slide. So the buildings with the most needs, and I just went to the summary spreadsheet and highlighted the ones with the biggest numbers. And as you can imagine, the classroom across the parking area here, the main classroom building has the highest need because it's your biggest building, and it's also your oldest building. It's got those two things going for it. So I know Brian with your facilities has got things in the works for replacing mechanical, but there are quite a few systems that need to be replaced. As a side note, the auditorium was seismically upgraded in 2017 about. And so that portion of the building meets current seismic requirements. And as a side note, this building as well. This building went through a seismic upgrade same summer. And so we're in really good shape. And another side note, one thing that this building really desperately wants is a fire sprinkler system. The building has a fire alarm system. It's been seismically upgraded, but it's a type of building with all the outside walls are concrete. Everything else is wood frame. It's a large building, so being able to sprinkle it would be a great thing. And then Milcoma School, mainly Milcoma is 63, so yeah, it's pretty old, but it's not as old as your other facilities, but it's a large school. It's about 90 to 100,000 square feet. So those proportionally, they just add up. And then Milner Crest, and then Bunker Hill follows. Bunker Hill, of course, that's your charter school. And so those, Milner Crest, Bunker Hill, yeah, and then Blossom, those buildings are all kind of the same vintage. Very similar construction methods back then. And then I mentioned the SIDE grants. That really remains a really viable option for the district to pursue funding for upgrading district buildings. So seismic upgrades average about $85 to $100 a square foot. They're pretty intense, and so it's a great funding source for the district. I think I'm about done. Next slide. Yeah, so that kind of gives a quick rundown on facilities. I can go into more detail tonight or later. So we're kind of in the throes of wrapping up, finalizing the report. Are there any questions you guys might have? Yeah.
When you were talking about mechanical and systems, can you explain the difference for me?
Yeah, that's like this ductwork and what's feeding that ductwork. There's a mechanical unit someplace that's got a fan and a heat source, whether it's a boiler or whether it's a heat pump. Those systems, like in the classroom building, the main classroom building here on campus, they have unit ventilators in the classrooms that are, they have a lot of age to them. I don't think they're original, but they're close to. And so those have been failing. And they also don't meet, we have a requirement to have fresh air in rooms. You have to bring in so much fresh air to keep the CO2 levels down. And so those are identified as well. Like Milner Crest needs a new boiler. Problem with the ventilators or the radiators that they don't provide any air movement. So we're addressing those too when you hear the word mechanical.
Thank you.
Can I ask, so, obviously, would you say a total cost of 85 million, something like that?
Well, remember big numbers.
Some large figure that we can't afford.
Right.
And obviously, we just had a significant bond measure, so our hands are probably tied financially, would be my guess, for a while.
Yeah.
Are there parts that you are seeing that could cause us there are some things that are really going to be potentially problematic? I mean, obviously, we're going to be sort of doing some things as we can. Are there things in the district that you see, okay, this could well go, and then this is going to create a crisis for us?
Yeah, it's a tough question to ask. I mean, as simple as it sounds, roofing is important.
Yes.
We have a roof right across that way, Fire Hall. That roof, that building was, I think, 2001, and so that roof is original. And so single ply membranes, we get a 20-year warranty out of them. If the roof drains well, you might get 25 years. So that's right there on the cusp. I think there's budget in the works possibly to replace that roof. So keeping on top of that is really important. Mechanical systems, they just make for a more comfortable learning environment. And so, as well as windows, it's hard to get a read on a payback on windows. But if you're on an outside wall, a couple feet away, and it's 40 degrees outside, it's not comfortable. So a lot of them have to do with creating a more comfortable learning environment.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, you're welcome, folks.
Thank you.
I'm gonna sport out of here if it's okay. All right, you guys have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Okay, next up, we have CDA business, Jeremy. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
I don't have any prepared remarks tonight. I don't have anything really out of the ordinary to share with you guys. Like Mallory said, I feel like it's been a really short month since I talked to you all last time. Things are going pretty well. We still have our usual kind of concerns around the district, like I mentioned last time. But I've also talked to admin to know that they're kind of aware of them and we're trying to kind of deal with them. Mostly, we're just really excited to be able to help out with the search for an interim superintendent. Looking forward to kind of being involved in, what you all do as far as that goes. I'm kind of worried that last time we didn't really have much process. So I want to make sure that this time around we were able to kind of be involved in that a little bit. get some input and things like that. So that's pretty much what's going on with CBEA. Any questions? Fantastic. You guys are best.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Good job. Okay, up next we have OSBA business. Free.
Good evening. I took a screenshot of it so I wouldn't have to try and squint at the screen this time. Just a quick a couple of updates is we were able to get through the reclassification process and we were able to get that going, and so we had a position that was reclassified. And myself and Wilma Laney, we were able to go to a town hall meeting and got to speak with Senator Anderson, and then Boomer Wright was there as well. We got to talk about education, the funding, and kind of what his plans are coming up in the future. And had a really nice conversation with him and just kind of talked about our union and what was at the state for the House bills and Senate bills that were up that our union endorsed. And so it was there from a union perspective, but we got to talk about some of the needs in our community and speak up. One of the big things that came up was houselessness, and the community had some strong feelings on it. And I think one of the nice things that I reminded them is that houseless doesn't just mean the people that we're seeing on the streets or in the news that we're seeing problems, and that we do have families in our community experiencing houselessness, and it doesn't always mean sleeping in a tent. And then for our staff spotlight, I have Cassie Williams, who works at Melipoma as an educational assistant, and Mindy Wilson had nominated her, and she goes above and beyond at work every day for students and staff, such as running errands to help a student or staff member out, volunteering her time to help with the dance committee, working in the evenings at school events, or coming into the cafeteria to help out whenever we need her. Cassie truly loves working with kids and making a huge impact on their lives in her job. Melipoma is truly lucky to have her as an employee, and our district is lucky to have her. And so this is her with some of the students at Melipoma. And one of the other things that was added about Cassie is that she just has the right attitude day in and day out. She doesn't ever see problems, and that she seeks out solutions. And so this is Cassie at Melipoma. And do you guys have any questions or comments? Okay, that's all I've got for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brady. Next up, we have a featured school, which is Marshall High School. Welcome, Eli.
Oh, well, Damon gets that ready. I'm not sure if you're aware of what happened today, but we had quite an eventful day, not just for Marshall High School, but pretty much most high schools around the county, the state, United States. So one thing I would like to say is I am truly appreciative for the support that we get from the Coos Bay Police Department. Both Chief Chapinar and Lieutenant Schaefer came up to the high school immediately and met with myself and Casey McFord to devise a plan for how we were going to address where we were going to move forward. So it is unique that I don't think a lot of school districts or high schools around the state get that kind of support and have that relationship with the police department. And so we are truly fortunate to have that because, like I said, I mean, they're at basically when, Officer Scoville spends most of his time at the high school, and their leadership is always available and willing to come and meet and talk with us whenever any issues arise. So unfortunately, this is our third one, I believe, this year. And so this one actually turned out to be really, a massive kind of hoax around the United States. And so it was remedied rather quickly, unlike some of the ones we've had in the past where we've had to go to lockdown or lockout. So again, fortunately, it was resolved and we were able to move forward. And I do appreciate the community. We've had issues in the past where the community has kind of jumped the gun and tried to pull their kids out of school and basically, flooded our phone lines and things like that, and we did not get that. And I think that has a lot to do with the communication that went out. So I appreciate that. If your first time, welcome to Coos Bay. That's throwing that as gun right away, so that was kind of fun, wasn't it? All right, so presentation. So Mallory touched on a lot of things. I'm going to go over here in the first two slides, so I won't give you too much, but Dave, you want to go to the next one. So here's a few pictures of just some things that have gone on. The first one up here in the upper right corner, that was our first pep assembly. You can see that the whole one side is completely filled. The side that I'm on, the other side is completely filled too. I mean, it's been a long time since we have filled Pirate Palace with students for a pep assembly. So it was really impressive to see all the students. Most of our assemblies, you'll find them on one side of the gym, but it's just been a lot of fun to see a lot of school spirit come back. And the ASB has done an outstanding job with our assemblies. A lot of interactive fun for the kids. The band's getting a lot bigger. They sound great. It's just an overall great experience. Kind of going through our homecoming king and queen, Spencer Pedersen and Carly Kennedy, both part of ASBs too. Great kids, great leaders on our campus. Night at the Bayou, we had roughly 300 students participate in homecoming this year. So it was it's the most students I've seen in a homecoming dance in a long time. Down here on the right, that was our first choir. Mr. Aker had a choir concert in October, which is incredible to think that they had a choir concert that quick. That's all of our choir students together. Our choir has almost doubled since Mr. Aker came on last year. So kudos to him for increasing the enrollment in choir. A couple of our speech and debate students right there, that's Becky and Abby. Mallory touched base on them. That was their last tournament. As you know, many of you know probably that speech and debate is probably our most highly awarded program over the last few years. They put up several banners in Pirate Palace. So I know Coach Crook is continuing that. So we look forward to maybe another year. I know she's tough on her kids, but every year she's like, I don't know. And then they come back with the speech. So, and then the last one there is our last night. I got to go to The Wind in the Willows. It was an outstanding production. Really, what's incredible is to see Mr. Gaurillo actually go down, talk, go back up and sit, and do nothing the entire performance. I mean, the kids truly run the entire thing. It's really, really impressive. And so it was a lot of fun. It was very humorous. And like I said, it's always fun to see the productions. We were really fortunate to have a really quaint drama lab. I think there was I counted 35 to 40 people in the audience, but it felt packed. It felt, so it's just a really great atmosphere that, again, I don't think a lot of schools get. So we're really fortunate to have that facility. Okay, next slide. Athletics. So typically, I present at the end of the year, and so I kind of give you a general of what has gone over the year. So this year, I just really kind of have the, so far what's been going on in the fall. Football did not start the year well. We actually started 0-3 and finished very strong. We ended up making all the way to the quarterfinals and really came down to a big game against Mazama, which has kind of been a rival for us over the last few years. And it was a huge upset because I think at the time they were in the top 5. And so for us to beat them and then go on and win a game in the state playoffs and then get all the way up to Seaside and compete and almost get to the semifinals was a testament to our coaching staff and the kids, and they just didn't give up. So truly proud of them. Boys soccer made it to the playoffs again, and they continue to be strong. The last few years, historically, boys soccer or soccer in general has not been a program that's been very successful at Marshfield, but it continues to grow and do well. Girls soccer, I know it wasn't the year that they had hoped, but they finished strong. They got a league playoff win, and so that was nice too, especially for our seniors. We had 4 outstanding seniors for a lot of into the last 4 years, and so I know it was exciting for them to finish the year strong like that. And then again, our volleyball team, defending state champions, and unfortunately fell a little short in the state championship game, so they were runner-up this year. But again, making it to a state championship team 2 years in a row speaks a lot. It's not too many programs that get to do that 2 years in a row, so outstanding for them. Now we're on to, and then cross country. This is the first we had a girls cross country team. We have not fielded a full girls cross country team in a few years, so we actually had a full 5 that competed in districts. They finished 5th. Our boys finished 3rd, and Jackson Stovall, sophomore, was 2nd in the district. So he lost to the eventual state champion from Cottage Grove. So we're very excited for him for next year, and the rest of our cross country athletes. And then, our winter sports, and this year, first year we had girls wrestling. I don't know if you know that we have completely renovated the lower in the West Gym. There's actually a girls wrestling mat room now. So our boys have their mat room down here below in the main gym, and the girls have one in the West Gym. This year we have 38 boys and 13 girls.
37 boys.
37, here's a ton.
Not even close.
Not even 13?
14 girls, 37 boys.
Okay, so great turnout for wrestling this year. And as Mallory said, you know, they started the year well. I think we went to Sutherland, they got first and third over at Sutherland. So they're doing really well. Basketball programs, doing outstanding. You know, basketball has been a sport that we've been very successful over the years, and we continue that legacy. And then swimming. You know, Kathy our swim coach, was just inducted in the Hall of Fame this last year. She has been the swim coach here for many years, and she continues to do well. The one thing that I always say about Kathy is I've never found a swim athlete in my office. It's rare. You don't ever find that. And I think that speaks a lot for Kathy's expectations on her student athletes and how they present themselves here as students. All right. So I always like to appreciate the people who give to us. I mean, obviously we have a lot of donors, and you'll see them throughout the halls here in Pirate Palace, down at the football field. But a couple people who've been very generous outside of that too. Alan Adesma and Puerto always do a lot of our athletic pictures. But he's also going to provide us with some announcements, some TVs and some announcement software. So over the next few months, you'll start seeing those additions to each of our buildings. It's just going to present a lot of the information about what's going on the campus and with our students. This one just happened over the last week. Last year, Dr. Yost provided sweatshirts for every freshman. We're going to be able to do that again this year, thanks to Premier General Builders. So they donated $6,000 to be able to buy every freshman a brand new Marshfield sweatshirt. We're going to go black this year so that, you know, it's a different color, and we'll kind of know who our sophomores and who our freshmen are. Fastmart donated $5,000 to pay for our new scores table that'll be in the gym. So this year we're pushing the bleachers back a little bit. We'll have a nice scores table with some padded seats, chairs for both home and visiting teams. So that'll be pretty exciting. Coos Bay Toyota and KMTR, they did a promotion this year where they were at the football games. And so for every touchdown, we got $100, and every field goal or extra point, we got $50. So it ended up raising $2,150. So very nice, and that's our cheer team and football team receiving the check right there. And then finally, the Bandon Dunes Charitable Foundation gave us $13,000 a couple weeks ago for our culinary program. And so again, I'm very appreciative of Bandon Dunes. We're actually going to go on Wednesday to tour the lodge because they're going to donate some kitchen equipment to us. So help kind of upgrade our facility as well. So we don't really have a lot of places to put it. So that'll be my next project, is coming up with a new facility for our culinary program. All right, so I'm going to try to read through this. So part of it is, part of the presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the school data and where we currently are at and where we kind of finished last year. Summer school, we had 100 students that we invited to summer school. Typically, we only invite students that are credit deficient or needing to make up credits, typically around core classes. We ended up having 48 students earn credits, at least a half credit. And of those students, they earned 54.2 credits. So put that into perspective, my first year in the district in 2015-16, we had 3 students participate in summer school and 1 student earned 1.5 credit. So we've come a long ways helping students earn credits and get caught back up. Our 9th grade on track data. So this last year, we had 93% of our freshmen considered on track, which was down 1%. I love that number, but I'm going to tell you, I don't honestly believe that's 100% accurate. That information is pulled kind of mid-year, and so it typically doesn't really represent where our freshmen end up at the end of the year. To give you a more true number, I would say we're probably in the low 80%. But again, we continue to work with a lot of our freshmen as they kind of transition from the junior high to the high school. It is a difficult time, especially with some of the core classes. But again, I like that number. It looks good, but I'll be honest with you, it's not 100%. This year, so to give you an idea, this year right now at the quarter, 49 of our 215 freshmen were failing at least 2 courses. And so essentially, if you're failing 2 courses, you're already off track. And so during the conferences in November, we strongly encourage our staff to reach out to those students' families and try to encourage them to come in, have those meetings to figure out how they can help get them back on track and what's going to work best for them. After we get back from holiday break, myself, our graduation coach, counselors will start scheduling meetings with some of those families to help work with them because they'll still have about 3 weeks left of the semester before the actual final grade that really matters and goes on the transcripts. Our graduation and 12th grade data. So we had 85% of our students were on track last year, or graduated last year, the year before. So 21, 22, which is a 3% increase from the previous year and 4% above the state average. At the semester last year, so at the end of the first semester last year, we had 51 of our seniors that were at risk of not graduating, which is a considerably high amount. Fortunately, we were able to get most of those students back on track. We did have 13 students that did not graduate, but majority of them we were able to help get through either summer school and finish, or they're currently with us right now, still going to school. A couple did transfer to either AYA or destinations. I don't think we had any destinations this year. So as of December 5th, so of December 5th this year, 24 seniors are at risk to graduate. So we're considerably down. And a lot of that has to do with Missy Cooper. If you have not met Missy Cooper, she's our graduation coach. She does an outstanding job with working with our seniors and helping them get back on track and developing relationships. Those kids, the most important thing is relationships. She meets with them. Most of them have her first or second period. So she has 2 periods of credit recovery. Some of them don't even have credit recovery. They just have a class with her so that she can keep her thumb on and keep them going. And then as of December 5th, 30 of our seniors have already completed 1 or more credit recovery courses. And so we're seeing a ton of improvement, or at least motivation from our seniors to get back on track to finish. We have met with all but 2 of our in-person seniors. So to kind of give you a perspective too, of the 24 seniors though, 8 of them are online. Our online students can be tricky, as Ms. Crook can know. It is difficult to sometimes get a hold of families because they're not here in person. And so home visits is kind of crucial, and we're trying to work with them to get them back on track. However, if they can't do that, then the expectation is they'll come back in person and finish with us so that we do have that in-person communication. The other one that's a big one is attendance. So last year, this is kind of a number that I know Casey, just bugs him to the nth degree, is that we had 46% of our students were regular attenders. That means they attended school 90% or more. That is not a good number. And that's really truly a byproduct of COVID. We have really, really struggled to get our students to come back regularly at school, attend consistently. As of last year, on December 1st, 45% of our students were regular attenders. This year, 59%. So we're already seeing an increase. And again, a lot of it has to do with what Casey and Chad Briscoe, our attendance advocate, are doing with students and the relationships they're building. So again, we're already starting to see that improvement. The final thing is going to college. And this was kind of a big one for us. Historically, a lot of our students, I would say about a third of our students are what you would consider college-bound students. This last year, we had 42% of our students complete the FAFSA, which is a 10% increase. This usually shows that 42% were thinking about college. And so this year, though, one of the things that we have done is part of the senior portfolio, we are requiring all of our students to apply to SWAN. And the hope in that is that they can see what the potential is out there should they want to go to college. And the other thing we talk about is the fact that community college isn't just college. There are certification programs, community programs, things that are going to help you advance in a career. Because we always tell them, not all of you are going to want to be that entry-level person. At some point, you're going to want a promotion. At some point, you're going to want to be the boss. And so you're going to need some of those skills and that these courses can provide you. And the best time to do that is now, because there's tons of money available to you now. 2-3 years down the road, a lot of that money doesn't exist anymore. So it's really important you take advantage of it now, even if it's just a few classes. So we had 160 of our seniors and avid students attend a SWAT orientation on November 30th, which was way more than they had thought we were going to bring. Initially, last year, I think we brought 45. So, and they did a phenomenal job of providing a great, we went into Hale Center and they provided a presentation. We got to meet with the financial aid officer, admissions counselor, some of the deans. They got to do kind of a scavenger hunt tour of the campus, and it was just a great overall experience. So hopefully it inspired a few more kids to think about college or think about going to SWAT that maybe didn't think that was a possibility. All right, so our goals for this year, we really have 4 goals this year. First one's around AVID and focus notes. Over the past few years, we have really focused on the first two phases, which is basically taking and processing notes. Now we're kind of really forcing or pushing the application, the synthesizing of notes, and then using them in the assessment process. And also in our retake process, because since we are proficiency grades grading, that most of our students, when they fail assessment, they have the opportunity to come back and take that assessment again. And we want the notes to be a part of that process. Again, proficiency grading, when I started a couple years ago, I asked our staff if proficiency grading was the path that we wanted to continue down, or if we wanted to kind of revert and go back to percentage. Majority of our staff wanted to stay with proficiency grading, and that's great. And at the time, I wasn't a big fan of it at the secondary level. But as I've had the opportunity to go to professional developments, I see its potential and how well it can be, but it has to be done well. And we weren't doing it well. Part of our problem is because we were so inconsistent from staff member to staff member, department to department. And so for now, we've started this process this year with a company called First Education. We had our first professional development back in October. We have another one coming up on this Friday, and we'll continue to work with them over the course of the year, focusing on priority targets this year. Attendance. So the big focus for attendance this year is to really hone in on the 80 to 90% kids. The kids that were just below that threshold, and try to increase that. How can we get them to come just a few more days, and continue with that relationship building? And then finally, our advisory PAT is adjusting our structure. So PAT over the years has kind of been a potpourri of things, but mostly what it has been is it's been babysitting, and it needed structure and curriculum. And so with our Naviance curriculum, which provides the career and college readiness part, with Character Strong, which is the SEL component, that's the curriculum we're using, as well as the AVID structures with grade checks, planner checks, and just kind of the goal setting and with students and how they're going to progress throughout the year within their courses. Long-term goals. So AVID continues to be a big thing for us. We will be adjusting some of our school-wide initiatives. So again, we've really focused on organization. We're going to start working on inquiry and the critical reading. Those are going to be two that we'll be adding over the next couple of years, as well as adjusting to our advisory model. So that's something we're going to be looking at next year, is how we can adapt a lot of what AVID provides for our PAT, and kind of shifting away from Naviance. Naviance costs us a good chunk of money. We already pay for AVID, so it's kind of like we can save a little bit of money by dumping Naviance and adding some of the AVID pieces into it. And then the elective course. So currently right now we have a 9-10 and 11-12 AVID elective next year. And both those courses are we have about 30 kids in each one of them. So next year we'll be transitioning into a 9, a 10, 11, and a 12. And if you're not familiar with AVID really, the focus of AVID is to provide students the foundational skills to be successful in advanced coursework, to push them to want to take those advanced courses and hopefully take them to college or down a path of technical, career or technical training or anything like that maybe they don't have the skill set to quite do that. What people sometimes think it is it's study hall. It's not study hall. It's like I said, it's all facilitated by tutors. But again, the focus is that these students have all the potential to be outstanding students. They just don't have the foundational skills, and that's what the AVID elective provides for a lot of those students. The proficiency grading, this is a 3-year plan. So we're in year 1. So going into this, we knew that this was going to be something that wasn't going to happen overnight. And so we have a 3-year plan of how we're going to go down. This year, like I said, we're focusing on priority standards. Eventually, we'll get into the scope and sequence and curriculum mapping, and then getting into rubrics, our assessments, and then kind of overall just communication with families and consistency throughout our departments. Facilities. Obviously, Joe talked about our facilities. We are the oldest buildings, for the most part. We have the most work to do. So a lot of this is planning. Some of it's simple things like classroom furniture that has been neglected for years. And so I'm just trying to come up with a plan. For my goal every year is to come up with 4 sets of chairs and 1 set of classroom sets of tables for all of our staff, and just kind of planning through that. Technology. The safety, so we've been adding, Kevin and Trevor have done an excellent job of adding cameras over the last 1.5 years. We still have a lot of spaces that we'd love to add more. Lighting, there's just a lot of things that we need to upgrade, and most of it has to do with safety for our students. CTE, so we were really fortunate to add culinary, but I'm not done yet. I'd still like to add 2 more. Early childhood is probably our next biggest one. We've started 2 courses here this year. We have child psychology and then child development in collaboration with Destinations and Little Pirates Preschool. That's kind of the next phase, and we'd like to provide our students an opportunity to take that up, to be able to get into those programs, possibly maybe a daycare down the road, something like that. And then the other one, which is actually a big course right now, there's actually a couple programs over at SWAC, has to do with ag science. So ag science, forestry, ecology, sustainability, and that's something that we'd really like to pursue. I grew up in Sutherland. I was a big FFA guy. I'm still a big part of 4-H, and I think it's a huge component of our community that I think are lacking. Forestry used to be a big part of this high school. We used to have a forestry class there. Mr. Wall taught it. And so I think it's really, really important that we bring back that because, again, we can articulate the SWAC to provide that pathway for a lot of our students because I think there's a lot of interest for a lot of our students. The other one is going to be additional graduation requirements. So over the next few years, we have some new additional graduation requirements coming. Most of them are a couple years away, but we need to start planning now. The big one's going to be around civics, personal finance or financial literacy, and then the higher ed career pathways. Those are both half credits. And so currently right now, civics kind of goes hand in hand with our government. But a lot of our students don't take government because they take AP psychology. So they can kind of take either or. That will be a requirement. And so that is going to be a little taxing on our social studies department because right now our social studies department only has 4 FTE. Of all of our core departments, it is the least staffed. And so now we're going to be putting a little bit of extra work on them. And so kind of figure out how we can support them to make sure that we get those graduation requirements met. The other big part is the essential skills. If you're aware that it's been postponed until after the 27-28 school year. If you're not familiar with that, basically what it was prior to COVID was students had 1 of 2 ways to get essential skills met, either pass the state assessment in math and reading, or they had to complete work samples. We still do the work samples because it's embedded in our curriculum from 9th grade through 12th grade, so that's still there. But we'll see how the state transitions over the next few years of what that's going to look like. Hopefully it's not the state assessment. I'm not a big fan of a snapshot state assessment being the end all for a way, to require kids to be able to pass or graduate. But again, we have those work samples embedded, so it's not additional work on our kids. All right, so last up, just some upcoming events. Mallory talked about it. We have a band concert this Wednesday, so if you're available, 7 o'clock in the auditorium. We have the Les Schwab tournament, the 14th through the 16th this weekend. We have a choir concert next Tuesday on the 19th. The CERT final, if you've never seen, this is quite an event. Mr. Hill and Mrs. Sanders do a great job putting on a wonderful opportunity for a lot of our kids. It is quite, like I said, it is quite the event. It takes up the entire Power Hall, sometimes it has taken up the gym, and the students do an outstanding job. There's a lot of community support that come in to work with our students in order to create this final, but it is quite the event. So if you get a chance, that's going to be on January 12th. It's a Friday afternoon, so I think it's around, it'll start like right after school, 2 o'clock, and it runs for a couple hours. Bay City Duels is our big wrestling tournament that we host here. It's the 19th through the 20th. Our big Civil War basketball games will be on January 30th. It will probably be just as packed as it was for volleyball. I was really impressed. I think we had about 175 students, and I would say probably the majority of the gym was packed for that. And it helped that we were like number 1 and number 3 in the state at the time, so it add a little bit to it. But it was a nice, good sweep of the dogs, so it's always fun to beat them. And I should say too, so this will be coming out later this month. Chris Pendleton and myself have brought back, kind of put together what we call Battle of the Bay Cup. And so really what it is, it's a competition for all of our programs. We'll be unveiling a banner here later this month, but basically we keep track of all the events, all the athletic events, OSA events throughout the year. And at the end of the year, the school who has the most wins will be able to take the cup for the next year. So after the fall season, North Bend is up on us by 1. So I'm excited for the winter season because I think we'll have a strong showing. We'll be able to come back and reclaim and get back in the league. Another big event for us is the MHS Charity Pageant. This year it's going to be on a Sunday, kind of a matinee show. It's on the 4th. If you have not been to one of those, it is quite the spectacular event too. It's some outstanding seniors who put on quite a show. And it's quite an event, and a lot of them are really outside their comfort zone. So it really surprises you to see what they do and especially their talents. The 3A basketball tournament will be the 29th to the 2nd. I put down an earthquake tsunami drill. Again, this is another event that we do, and I don't think very many schools do what we do and how prepared we are for such an event. Again, thank you to Linda and John for putting a lot of the hard work into putting these together. But we take it very seriously. Obviously, we live in an area that there's a good chance that it could happen, and when it does happen, I think we're going to be prepared and be able to provide our students and our families with the support and security they need to know their kids are taken care of. Speech and debate districts is going to be March 16th. So I know Ms. Kirk would love to have some volunteers. So if you're available, you don't have to have any experience. I have judged speech and debate tournaments and I have no idea what I'm doing. The kids are awesome. They really do a great job of helping you through it. And they really make you feel like you know what you're doing, even though you have no idea. So if you get a chance, March 16th, let Ms. Crook know, and she would love to have you come be a guest coach. The Prefontaine Invitational Meet is going to be on the 6th, April 6th. Again, that is our showcase track meet. It has some of the best track athletes from all in the state, even California come up. It is a lot of fun, and I get to go shoot the gun, so it's always fun. Our esteemed alum banquet is going to be on the 11th. So we have 2 individuals who will be inducting in this very room. And so we'd love to have you guys participate in that as well. Our Fine Arts Assembly. So Mallory mentioned one that we do one in the winter and we do one in the spring. And it showcases what our fine art department is doing. Band, choir, our drama club, who will be putting on another production in the spring. And then in the spring, we also have some of our outstanding speech and debate students perform at that assembly as well. Our MHS Scholarship Assembly will be on the 22nd. This will be a little bit later than we traditionally done. We pushed it back to the afternoon. Again, if you haven't been to one of these, last year we gave out over $400,000 to our students. Again, our students are extremely fortunate to have this. This is only available to Coos Bay students. And to have $400,000 available to just them is pretty outstanding. Our Memorial Day Assembly will be the very next day, so we'll be right back in the auditorium. And then we have an end of the year awards event, which is the 29th. That's an evening event. It's typically our department events, sports awards, and then outside scholarships. So we do a lot of the outside scholarships that night as well. And then graduation's on the 8th. So it's going to be a busy, busy year, like always. So, all right. Questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So you talked about proficiency grading. So we are doing proficiency grading right now. Okay. And then just so I'm clear, can you just tell me proficiency grading versus, I guess, what traditional grading?
So proficiency grade is done on a rubric. So basically every assessment will have a rubric, and we go basically on a 0.5 scale. So 1 to 1.5, 2, 2.5, and so on. And within that rubric, it will tell you the specific standards or like targets within there that they would expect you to meet in order to get that score. So each assessment, typically a lot of assessments will be similar. The rubrics won't change a lot within each course, but some will differentiate based on the content or the target that they're working on. Where your typical percentage is like there's 10 questions and you got 9, and that's 90%. So there's a little bit more to, essentially the proficiency is focused on the tasks, not so much as the answer. So how do you get to the answer plays just as much as importance as the actual answer itself. Yeah. And the thought process is too, is I have the opportunity to then go back. So if I make an error, I have the opportunity to go back and retake, show you that I understand how to do that and where I made my mistake. Now, I will say our dual credit courses though, don't follow that. They are percentage based because it's articulated with SWAC or other community colleges, and we have to follow their grading practices.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next, we have the business office update with Marita.
Hi.
Thank you, Marita.
So enrollment is doing well. We're pretty neutral. We are up 6 enrollment numbers from last month. Most of them are actually at Eastside, which is great because we had seen their lower numbers earlier this year, but they're back we're back up 4. We got 4 extra, hopefully not kindergartners this year running around. Things are looking great. We're within 5 from last year's numbers at December enrollment. So we're on the course. We're up in total 18 from the beginning of the school year. So great news. Every student counts. I would prefer to keep going up. We're gonna hope. And we actually just did part of our long range facility planning committee was an enrollment projection through Flow. It's a data analyst, and they've done our projections now through 2034. So we'll be budgeting off of those numbers, but if we see drastic increases, we can always make some changes. They've looked at the last 10 years of enrollment data and our capacity and the community and really where they see us going, and it's pretty consistent with where we're at now. They don't see huge growth, but they don't see huge decline either, thankfully. I know that's something we were concerned about recently, but it's projected to stay very consistent, thankfully. On to the general fund. Things are looking great. We are exactly on track for where we would expect based on our historical trends, based on historically where we would be at in, through November. We're right on track based on our spending. We're actually down a little bit in some of them, in some of our functions, so that's great. We're really trying to keep on track with our projected enrollment and costs and not just spend extra because there's extra state school funds. So we will still have to do a supplemental budget, even though we are currently not over any major function. That is, again, purely the pass-through to Lighthouse School. It will push us over a major function because they're owed their money. It'll be due in May, and so we probably will not be over anything until May, but I don't want to do a supplemental budget at the same time as a regular budget. So you'll see that in February. We're predicting February will have a lot more answers in terms of state school fund and future spending. And so you'll see the February board meeting, that supplemental budget. Just in time to start thinking about the 24-25 budget. Special revenue funds, again, looking great. This is all based on grant funding. We now have our grant allocations finalized. We have our last couple of grant awards coming out of ODE, which is great. So we're getting final allocation numbers. That'll be in the supplemental budget. We'll get actual hard allocations for this year as well as carryover from last. So we can spend those based on the grant narratives that we've been submitting to ODE for quite a while. So this one, special revenues looks great. Debt service, you'll see nothing's really happened in that. We paid our debt service payment today through a wire. So next month you'll see our interest payment for December come out, and then nothing really until May. Things are looking good. This is properly budgeted for because we have very specific amounts, thankfully. And capital projects. It's the fun one that always says we're going to be over the facilities acquisition function. It's projecting us to be over it by about $3.5 million. This is not accurate. We're just making wonderful progress on Millicoma. And so most of Millicoma's work has been done now, and our system projects that we will spend consistently through the rest of the year. We won't. We're finishing that up now, and then the rest will be HVAC for Millicoma, which will come out of the special revenue funds, not out of capital projects. So we will not be over. We have a project manager, IMS, and they are tracking this budget monthly to a T. We are not going over, and we will not have to supplemental budget the capital projects funds, thankfully. Does anyone have any questions? That was a quick run through.
Can I ask just to hear where we are around, I know there was an issue with the maintenance of effort.
Mm-hmm.
And, can you talk a little bit about where that stands?
Yes, I have a happy update. So ODE was here about 3 weeks ago now. It was right after our last board meeting. And Jenny Nelson, myself, Lisa DeSalvio, we met with ODE and talked over this maintenance effort, what we could do to potentially lower this. And based on Jenny and Lisa's solution, we were able to reduce the entire MOE amount that we owed back to Oregon and also lowered our threshold so that that won't happen again. They were able to track student by student and the expense per student the students then who didn't come back that year, but we had staffed accordingly, that assuming that they would and should have come back. And so based on each student individual, we were able to show their attendance and their costs and what that would have allowed us to reduce an MOE. And so the whole thing's taken care of. Yeah, we don't have to pay anything back. And they want Jenny's spreadsheet so they can show the other districts who are in the same place.
We say we're probably not alone in that.
We were not alone.
Yeah.
No, we just happened to also be monitored by ODE for IDEA, the fiscal funds. And so we were able to work with them really closely on a solution. So we're about 9 months ahead of schedule because they were already going to be here. So it's all taken care of. We don't have to pay anything back or panic about it moving forward. Yeah,
I'm sure we have other uses for that.
I hear lots of them. Facilities typically. Any other questions?
For Marina?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, next up, we have our superintendent update. Thank you. Welcome, Dave.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. For our audience members, my name is Dave. This will help with a friendly reminder. First of all, I just wanted to start with a few thank yous. The first thing I'd really like to do is just express my appreciation to the board of directors for inviting me into your community and entrusting me to help lead the district during this transition period. I know that it's been a difficult period, but I'm happy to be here and happy to help. And I want the board members to know that I understand the role of an acting superintendent. Okay, it's a short period of time. I'm here to support your staff, support students, insert myself where it makes sense to support the work, and then make sure that the office of the superintendent, that important work continues to move through so that nothing kind of gets stopped in the works. So been busy doing that today, and I'll give you an update on that here in just a few minutes. I want to apologize first and foremost. I feel like I'm sitting in kind of an awkward position because I have board member behind me, audience members behind me to the left and right. So it is just a little bit awkward. But I also wanted to say a special thank you to David. As the executive assistant to the board and superintendent, he has been invaluable in helping me understand the Coos Bay School District community. So thank you, David. The last time I worked as an interim superintendent, which is part of being an ESD superintendent sometimes, I walked into a situation where they didn't have a board secretary. They didn't have a superintendent. They didn't have a business director or HR director. And that makes for a tough job understanding what needs to get done. So I feel very fortunate having that level of support. And I also wanted to thank you, Kevin, for making me feel welcome. You've gone out of your way to reach out to me every step of the way to support me in this work. And I want you to know that I do appreciate that very much. I also feel like I'd be remiss if we didn't thank the students of the Culinary Arts Program and your teacher. I thought it was just a really nice event before tonight's board meeting. I know that I appreciated that nice meal, but I appreciated seeing the students interacting with board members, learning those skills and things like that. It was really a very wonderful evening. So I just think on behalf of the board of directors, we want to thank the students of the Culinary Arts Program. So thank you for that. I also just wanted to share a few observations about this evening's board meeting. I've sat through lots of board meetings in my 38-year career as an educator, the last 32 years as a school administrator. And I have to tell you that your board meetings have a much different feel to them that really feels good to me as a neutral observer. The fact that you have time devoted for your union representatives, OSCA and CPA, to speak directly to the board, your student rep, your focus on one school, okay, and talking about not only sports, but academics and the goals for the school, and then featuring a school program before a board meeting. All those things just really resonate with me as a professional and as a person. And it just shows to me the type of deep relationships and the special nature that you have in this school district. And I can tell you, I've walked into a lot of board meetings where there's far too much conflict and not enough focus on kids, focus on educational programs, or hearing directly from our union representatives. So I just wanted to compliment you on that. It feels great to be part of this. And then importantly, just to mention, board members know this is my 6th day on the job in support of the Coos Bay School District. My first day in the school district, actually working with students and staff. And I thought you would appreciate just a brief high-level update, because there's some things I don't want to get into too much detail with, but I think that you're aware I've communicated with you on some personnel-related issues, a bus incident, those type of things can certainly take a lot of time. A parent complaint. Also let you know that I've started to have a number of meetings with important people within the school district, our cabinet. Jeremy, CBEA leadership, South Coast ESD superintendent worked on a parent complaint that we had. And then of course, just want you to know that like Eli has already said, the school safety threat that we received earlier today takes a great deal of time and energy to deal with these type of things. It's really unfortunate that in our current environment, that school personnel have to devote so much time to these type of email, anonymous type of threats. But that's where we are. And I want the board to know that we take those type of threats seriously. But we heard very soon after we received that email that a lot of other school districts in Oregon and other school districts in other states are receiving similar type of communications. So that tells us pretty quickly that this is probably a large scale type of hoax. You still have to be extremely careful. So we reached out to the Coos Bay Police Department. And I want to echo what Eli said. The police department response was outstanding. And one of the things that we had asked for in our community is, could we potentially collaborate on some sort of press release or joint statement between the school district and the local police department? And they said yes instantly. And I think there's really a lot of power when you can partner with another entity, whether it's a fire department, police department in this case, whatever, and communicate with one voice at one time to your school community, and to all of your staff, your parents and families, other key partners, because I think that instills confidence and it shows the power of a smaller community and how you can address these issues, I think, the right way, and try to allay concerns. So that is my report for this evening. After 6 days, I don't have that much to share with you, but I'd be happy if you had any questions of me.
Thank you for coming down.
Do you have any sort of regular schedule that you're planning on being like in town or anything?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about a regular schedule, so I'm pretty mobile. So I can be here for as many days as needed. So what we're trying to balance is that cost-benefit ratio. There's times when I need to be in the district to attend the business, and times when I can do that from Salem. So I'm just going to try to do the work, but do it in an economical way for the school district. Save you a few bucks. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, up next, we have the facilities committee update. I think Joe really covered that really well, but with our facilities update. So I'd just like to do a shout out to Joe, and then also Brian, our facility maintenance department, and Rena and David we come together monthly to review stuff the community has, that the school districts have, that everyone has, and it's been helpful. So if you have a question, you kind of don't know where to start, that's a good spot to go for the community or you're in the staff member. So that's it for the facilities. So we move to I, which is the policy committee update.
All right. Well, I know this is everyone's favorite part, so I'll go through again what the different colors mean. So the yellow is what we will be keeping. We have elected as the policy committee to keep. The gray is what is new from OSBA from their policy update. If you see anything in red that's not grayed out, that's something that I noticed in their update that we did not have, but wasn't included as part of their update. So we had made different choices somewhere along the road. And then anything that's in red is what we plan to remove. I am happy to say that when I came into this role, there were 4 policy updates that needed to be done from about a year and a half past. We have reached the end of that. So we are up to date after these well, I guess after the next board meeting when we take these from first reading and approve them, we'll be done until the next one comes out probably next week. But we are done for a moment and it feels nice. So we've worked our way through a heap of policies. So I appreciate everyone's help with that. The first policy, BDBDA, is about board meetings. So you may find it interesting. There wasn't a ton that changed in there. There is, let's see, there was one that I thought would be of particular interest to you at the end of it on page 31 at the top of your top right-hand page. Mandatory training. So there is going to be a mandatory training required of every board member through the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. That's who you turned in your, it's not a statement of revenue, but you know what I'm talking about. The statements that were new last year that you had to submit about your income and things like that. So I will work with them to determine when we can take these. I don't know if it's something that we have to take as a board or if we can do them individually. So I'll find out answers to that moving forward and try to get something on the books for an upcoming board meeting so we can all just get up to speed.
See if there's a virtual option for that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be the best option if possible. Moving on to policy BDC, executive sessions. There was one interesting thing. Where was it at? So in the second paragraph here, it was my understanding, and I'm fairly certain it was the law, that you couldn't just have an executive session as its own meeting, which is why we had to open in public for, a minute and a half, and then close to executive session, and then come back to public to hit the gavel and be done. That's not a requirement anymore. It appears from this policy. It does say it can be held as its own meeting. So for those quick, emergency meetings or special board meetings we need to have that are 8 minutes total, we just need to take a vote on, or we just need to discuss an issue real quickly. I think that would be very helpful for us, and it's certainly it'll be helpful for me to not navigate the record on, record off, get off this meeting, go to this meeting. So it's going to really, really make those a lot easier to have in the future. So I'm happy with that change. Let's see. Anything else? There were also 2 ORSs added for executive session, or reasons that we can call an executive session. One of those is to consider matters relating to safety of the governing body, which only makes sense to me. If there's issues about the safety of this body, we want to be able to have discussions about how we protect that safety in private, as to not give away what the protections are going to be. And then also to consider matters relating to cybersecurity infrastructure and responses to cybersecurity threats, which I think is very relevant today. So if we need to have conversations about those types of threats, we can do that in executive session per this new ORS. That's basically it for that one. The next one, KBAAR, is public records request. And they just added the ORS on page 36. That's really the only change on that, and then adding request to the title. And then there's a few more changes on page 38.
Hey, Damon, I have about that.
Yes,
So changing and putting requests down makes this a totally different kind of policy, I think, because there is don't we have a need for just what our public records are and all that discussion? And then the request is if somebody wants something. Is that right?
I believe that the public records is KBA.
Okay.
So, and the AR is the administrative regulation to go with that policy. I can verify that for you,
That makes sense.
but I think that's what the case is.
Okay.
And really, it's just a few minor changes. I do like the addition of the sentence that if the requester fails to respond within 60 days to a good faith request from the district for information or clarification, the district can close the request, so we're not sitting with these things on our plate from 7 months ago that we still need to keep reaching out to somebody. So it does put some onus back on the person requesting the documents, which I think is a good thing. Next one is policy LBE. I believe the only addition is,
Was that one line?
yeah, that one line to say that the school needs to be located and operated within the sponsoring district, except where authorized by law. And I think that has a lot to do with online academies and things like that. But for us, we're already doing that, so. And then we did add Senate Bill 767 to the references at the end of that policy, as a reference. And that's it on policy update. Does anyone have any questions? I'm looking forward to not having one of these at our next meeting.
So am I.
I bet you are.
All right, thank you, David.
Absolutely.
And up next, we have number 9, board items, board member highlights. We'll have to share any highlights you might have.
I would say going to the, I don't know how many now, 27th or whatever, the Irish. Yes, when we honored the new inductees of the Hall of Fame, was really an enjoyable evening. Some of them go on a little longer than they need to, but they're nice, so let them go on a little longer if they need to. And I thought it was really a neat one. I enjoy getting to hear the stories from the different people. And one coach that went on about track, I really enjoyed her. So overall, it was really nice. And it's nice, it goes back to this room, it goes back to the history of Marshfield High School and getting to hear about these people. Recognizing Fran's now got I don't know how many honors. She's been inducted into the Hall of Fame more than a few times, which is appropriate. But it really was a highlight of an evening for me and my wife and the people we were with. So really appreciated that. That's pretty much what I have done this month. So thanks for that.
I unfortunately have only been to some athletic events. I did attend conferences at the junior high in Marshfield as a parent, and it was awesome. Like, it was cool for families, seeing all the families get together. They got their hot dog, their popcorn, or their cookie, and their drink, and it was just nice. You seen families together, and they were having a meal together, even if it was on the go. I found a lot of teachers available, which was really, really, really nice. So I enjoyed it as a parent and took note as a board member. It was really awesome how you guys did that. So I don't know if you had a higher turnout but it seemed like.
It was better this year, yeah. It's getting better.
Yeah.
Each session, or fall is always better than spring.
Yeah. And then I went to the junior high, and that was awesome. Teachers were available, and there was a lot of the students' art in the middle of the gym, and it was kind of cool to see the projects that had been done throughout the year. So it was nice. It was good.
I went last week to site council meeting here in this room. Eli does a really good job of keeping everyone that attends up to date on what's going on in the district, and new projects. The one thing that he did have to put off, due to our tumultuous state of affairs here on the board, is they are postponing working on the, mission statement for the high school.
Conferences at Marshfield were definitely fun. I got to speak to a few new teachers there and introduce myself. Also got to go to my first staff meeting over at Eastside. So thank you, Kara. That was, it was very fun and interesting.
It got a little spicy, as I remember.
It did a little bit. It also reminded me how much staff turnover we've had since COVID. There are a lot of new faces people I didn't recognize, so it was good to meet a few of them, and it was they weren't intimidated to go on with some of their stories during the meeting. And then
You're not intimidated.
not in public meeting, no. And then on Saturday, both of our elementary school teams had their robotics competition in Springfield. So we left Sunset at 5:30 in the morning and got back at 8 o'clock in the evening. Both teams did really, really well. Their tournament was supposed to be the week prior in Roseburg, and that got canceled due to lack of teams participating. But it made for a really nice change because last year there were only 6 or 7 teams in the competition. And then in the Springfield tournament, because they moved everybody from Roseburg up, there were 20 plus teams. So it's a much different experience for the kids. There's a whole cafeteria full of other teams getting their stuff together and doing their presentations. So they got a chance to walk around and look and see what other research projects they'd done. And then get into the big gym over at Thurston High School that actually do their competition. So they did really well. Neither team managed to bring home any trophies or awards. And I know particularly Millicoma, Mr. Harper was pretty disappointed with that. His team really did a great job with their robot and their programming. And I thought for sure they were going to get something after their project presentation, but it was made for a little bit of a long ride. And that's it for me.
And I'd say I have not been to a volleyball game since my daughter played it. Washington State, and it was as stressful as I remember. I don't think I can watch volleyball anymore too much. My heart can't take it. It's such an emotional up and down sport. And then I had an opportunity to go to some of the site council and things over at Blossom Gulch. And that's been fun just to kind of hear. I've learned quite a bit about this, the change in focus around teaching reading. And then interesting, I've learned some new things just about how it's approached. And yeah, I can see why families might wonder what the heck we're doing. It does not follow the traditional ways that I was taught. So it's been helpful for you to kind of hear that. And also just, I think, hearing teachers' excitement about that process, about trying to do something that they know is evidence-based and likely more effective for many of the people that we're teaching. So that's been enjoyable.
So I will say Blossom Gulch had an effect on Millicoma's robot because their table in the school is not flat. So when they made it to the tournament in Thurston where everything was flat and square, their turns were all off a little bit.
Mine are off every day.
It's all your fault.
The only thing I would note is that Wednesday, we have the first since we've been newly appointed to the advisory board for the radio. There's a radio advisory board, and I look forward to that.
I look forward to having you.
On Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, I guess.
Okay, I'll close out mine then. I'm just really thankful for all the board that we have here, our admin, the secretaries we have, Superintendent Dave here coming down and helping this well-oiled machine. We have a couple of gears kind of slipping, but everything just really runs smooth. And it's nice if something comes up, if it's late, you kind of
be latching into their cell phones, and everyone here has been doing a great job. Some of the roles I've taken on this last month are kind of voluntold, out of volunteer position, but it's been great. It's nice to see people networking out, and then if you reach out to even Salem or wherever, they're helpful, and they come in and they care. And it's neat to know that it's not really just about us, it's a community. It's actually growing out further than I even expected myself. So I just want to thank you guys on that part for being so helpful.
I'm glad it's you.
And then up next, we have number 10, the action items to consider. So we have Chad, thank you.
Good evening. We're down to our last item here to get our integrated plan complete and approved, and it's SIA items. And this is in your packet on page 43. And I'm looking at row 43 at the top because there's numbers down at the bottom for specific reports that are in here. And most of this starting on page 43 there for, let's see how many pages it goes, it's just legalese. But it has to be there for you to view or ask questions if you would like. And then the part that I want to get to with you starts on 62, and that number's at the top right again. And these progress markers here are items that we'll report to ODE and to the board yearly. And we will report to ODE quarterly, but to you yearly. And an example of this would be like number 1, community engagement is authentic, consistent, and ongoing. And you can kind of see that with when we report out on these, we'll report that we have strong partnerships with our community teams and partners such as the tribes. Number 3, data teams are formed and provided time to meet. And with our DIBELS data system and assessment system, and you're talking to a little bit of that change that you're seeing with ELA instruction, we can report back to you there also and report to ODE that these are firmly in place. Number 4, and I'm just reading the first little line there to you instead of reading the entirety, but school and districts have an accurate inventory of literacy assessments, tools, and curriculum being used. And we've been putting in a lot of effort to standardize our systems with the implementation of Amplify and those specific tools and instructional materials that we're using for our different groups. And then number 6, and this is just some general examples. Student agency and voice is elevated. And you can kind of see that from some of the talking points that Eli mentioned tonight, like deciding on culinary and the excitement that the students, when I came to the culinary department, that was about 2 weeks ago, saw how excited the students were and the need to build that program and get more materials and supplies, tools. And then also our online program. We realize there's some items in there that we need to dial in for the students that are using it as an escape from school, but also how many students are enrolled and the need for that. In 7, the action research, professional learning, and data teams, our partnership with ORTI, that we are accepted into Cadre 12. And this group is acting as our coaching and mentors for improving our literacy program through MTSS. And then also you heard from Eli that we partnered with First Education and the Stagger Center to improve our proficiency-based grading, proficiency, and standards-based instruction. Number 9, a review of the 9th grade course scheduling. That's part of our AVID inventory at the end of the year that the high school completes to make sure that we're targeting all groups. And number 10, foundational learning practices that create a culturally sustaining and welcoming climate are visible, and we're implementing Character Strong. I think you've heard about it. Eli talked to that, and then also at the elementary grade. So that's a K-12 initiative. And then also how many SEL staff that we have employed. The second part of this is, for tonight, is on the next page 64. and the process for adopting the longitudinal performance growth targets, the LPGTs, is how you usually hear those. And we had to build several years out here of projections and goals. And the way this started is I looked back 5 years worth of data and kind of set aside the 2 years of COVID data somewhat, and because it's just so out of whack with the progress that we were making, and there's too many other variables to include. I started building these charts that you see on the next 2 pages for these projections with ODE's, following ODE's instructions. Step 2 was to have a meeting with ODE to go over these and take into account their guidance and change some of these to meet what they thought that the federal requirements required. And then I took these that apply to the K to 6th grade levels to our student performance group, and it's a work group that's kind of changed names over time, and so you've heard it as possibly the student performance work group, the MTSS work group, ORTI when we became a partner with Cadre as part of Cadre 12, and now we're even it's moved to being called the DILT, which is the ORTI designation for that group. So it's a group of administrators, teacher leaders, intervention specialists, our literacy TOSA, and a few other, now we've included a few other teachers from each school. So it's becoming a pretty big group. I took these numbers to that group to get their approval. I took the numbers that apply more to the secondary level I met with Eli, Floyd, and Casey, and we went over these and adjusted them some, and then I reported back to ODE. And again, we made some changes here, and there was about 3 weeks that went by there. And as ODE gained more knowledge about what was going to be accounted for and how these were going to be rated, we dialed these numbers in a little bit more. Finally, I went to the superintendent, and she took a look, made a few comments, and then now it's here. And it's the final step for getting our integrated plan approved, is having any public comment tonight, having you have a chance to look at these. These numbers were, going back to looking at where we were and kind of seeing a trend line that made sense, that's attainable. And I'll use the 4-year cohort graduation as an example. There's the baseline, and we are hoping to land someplace in between the baseline target and the stretch target. So using the 4-year cohort graduation, 20 through 24 as an example, the 23-24 year, we're going to want to land somewhere. Our goal is to land between 73 and 75%. And then that next row, the gap closing row, is targeting our focal groups and those groups that we want to make sure that we're not leaving behind and have historically underperformed the rest of the group. And we're trying to close that gap over time, but you'll see even in the 27-28, it's not quite closed. And that's at ODE's recommendation. We're trying to raise the bar in reach, and you'll see that in the stretch targets, but at the same time, we're trying to be practical so that these goals are actually attainable, as opposed to they're just way up in the sky and they'll never get there. So you'll see the 4-year graduation targets, 5-year cohort completion, the 9th grade on track, which Eli spoke to tonight. The 3rd grade ELA proficiency, which I'm really hopeful there because of the time and effort that we're pouring into this area. The regular attenders. And then the last section is specific if we wanted to build into a goal, but it's suggested that we don't do that at this time. And then it goes back to the legalese until the end. And there was a signature page in there that I did point out that for a superintendent's signature, which was signed. And my next step is to get your approval, take the minutes from this meeting, and then we upload it to the ODE website, and then we are finalized. Questions about any of this process or targets? that we set.
Chad, I'm not trying to understand, so what is the stretch target? I know baseline means, I guess I understand what the gap closing target is, but what is stretch target supposed to indicate? That's different than.
So what they were hoping for is, because you can take two strategies to goals. We can say, we can shoot way up here and say, well, if we don't reach for that goal, we'll never get there. And so we set a target almost intentionally that's too high. And they didn't want us to do that, so they put in the baseline target, which is the one that they're saying, hey, let's choose one that we really think that we can get to realistically. And we'll separate that and give you a stretch goal also for those of you that want to stretch.
Overachievers.
Yeah, so we want to land, if I drew those trend lines out between the stretch and the baseline, we want to land somewhere above the baseline and hopefully to stretch out there towards the stretch target, but somewhere in between those two trend lines would be the place to go. So it's trying to be realistic and at the same time be optimistic. Questions or thoughts?
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Now, motion on the floor.
I will
There we go, Arnie.
move that we approve the SIA grant as written.
Thank you, Arnie. We have a second?
Second.
Adrian. Any discussion? None here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Chad. Next up, we have a designated civil rights coordinator from Michelle.
Sure. So, House Bill 2281 requires that the district designate a actual civil rights coordinator. We already have 3 required coordinator roles in the district. We have a Title IX coordinator, we have a Section 504 coordinator that's required by the state, and an ADA accommodations coordinator. I serve in the Title IX coordinator role. Lisa DeSalvio does the 504 and the ADA role. So the state, as of January 1, is requiring a new civil rights coordinator that is going to not only coordinate the implication of the civil rights rules and regulations, but also assist with investigations, compliance, and then also serve as a resource to staff, the community, teachers, public, with all things civil rights. The federal office is Office of Civil Rights, OCR. And so by state law, we have to have a designee by January 1. So some districts are having multiple people serve that role. Some districts are having superintendents serve that role. So I don't know who you would like to do that,
But you don't want to.
I'm happy. I'm happy to now. So this is kind of, they're creating the airplane as they're flying a little bit. So there is some required training, some feedback sessions, but we do just have to designate someone to do that. There are a lot of overlaps with our existing coordinator roles. I'm happy to be that person if you would like. As I know, we are in a situation with interim superintendent and Lisa retiring before year's end. So we'll have to fill that role with whoever takes her place, but I'm happy to do it now. In the interim, we can always redesignate someone later as an action item, or it could be our acting superintendent. So I just wanted to put on the agenda that we have to make a decision by January 1, but there's not a lot of other action items required at this time except for attending the mandatory trainings when they are announced. So whatever you would like. So, if you have questions, I can forward you a PowerPoint.
So we need to do that tonight?
Probably tonight, otherwise the next meeting is.
Unless you want to meet over Christmas.
If you don't want that, that's fine. Great thing is that.
It can be anybody.
Michelle, have you had any civil rights training, diversity training, any of those kinds of things?
Yes, and there's lots of overlap with, discrimination, race, all those protected class kinds of things. So I currently attend those trainings with the district.
So you could be a logical temporary person to fill this role, at least a temporary position.
Yeah. I mean, I'd hate for you to have to do it on the long term, only because this person is supposed to be able to provide guidance to you in performing the job. So, making you provide your own guidance is problematic. Can be.
You don't have to answer that.
It seems like a librarian kind of thing.
Yeah.
Seems like you streamlined the whole process. I don't know, this is pretty efficient.
I will move that we set the Michelle to this role for the time being.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Abby, thank you. Any discussion?
I just want to make sure, Michelle, like, you're good with taking this on and you, okay.
It's not a huge stretch right now because
And it
I don't
doesn't
know
feel
the
like.
rules of the job yet, so.
So you don't have to freak
Plus,
out
there-
for it.
plus there are-
Yeah, but thanks for thinking of it.
You'll know.
There are no pending complaints, correct?
Pardon?
No pending complaints that will, okay, never mind. I withdraw that question.
Not at that level yet.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously, thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, up next, we have future agenda items. Number 11. Does the board have anything they'd like to bring up?
Did we ever get in contact with, boosters? Dave, and were you ever able to reach out? I would love.
Yes, I
boosters.
had an initial conversation with Tanya Pedersen, and she was going to reach out to, I don't know if it's the president or chair or how they label that, but the person who heads up the Booster Club.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't received back, but truth be told, I haven't reached back out either. So I will reach back out this coming week and see if maybe the January board meeting would be a good time to fit them in.
Okay.
I don't know if other board members would be interested in this, but I did talk to a parent, and I think it's good. I just listened, but I did ask some questions just about 504s, how they work, IPs, how they work, and I just really did not know. And I mean, I can check on my own, but I don't know if the rest of the board knows that information or not. I just thought it might be good for me, maybe for the rest of you, to just have some kind of presentation around, the plans and what goes into it, a little bit about what the requirements are, so I could feel a little bit more informed in that area. So,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that's a wonderful
They
way.
did have some laws to change some of that this last year, so there's a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Many more meetings. So it probably is not a bad idea to have Lisa Salvio come to us a presentation.
Well, I actually just met with the local pediatrician earlier last week about that process because we have had some interesting referrals and not understanding the whole process. So yeah, I'm sure, I know Nurse Krista and I met with them about some concerns that we're seeing, some trends. But that was with the pediatrician, so I think the next group we would love to talk to is our mental health therapists and how that works too. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be happy to talk about that.
Were you volunteering to put a
I
presentation?
don't know about putting a presentation, but I'll be happy to talk about it. I can talk.
He can find someone to put on a presentation.
Yeah.
We actually had purchased, from the Hungerford Law Firm, some training materials that with videos and handouts, as part of a compliance, component, last year after, ODE complaint. And so we do have an access to a cache of resources, already that outline really some basics and then go deeper dives into specific issues. So Lisa has access to that.
Okay. Good. And then before we go into executive session, I was wondering if you guys want to take me like a 5-minute recess, use the restroom and stretch a little bit and come back.
Sure.
That's good. Yeah.
That would be appreciated.
Okay, 5 minutes.
It's a long one.
To executive session based on ORS 192.660B to consider dismissal or disciplining of or to hear complaints or charges brought against an officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent who has not requested open hearing. And also ORS 192.6602A, consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so. Start out.
You need to open a executive session.
Start us off. Welcome back, and we're reconvening from executive session. Welcome, everyone. Arnie?
I would love to make a motion. I move to affirm the recommendation to terminate the probationary teacher discussed in executive session.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would note that Carly's online and that the dish is still not been done.
She did say she wasn't doing anything.
I heard it very clearly.
Yes.
Well, thank you, everyone. That concludes everything on the agenda. Meeting adjourned.